Welcome again to the 11th edition of ElectHER webinar series. Here you are that this is the 11th edition, and today we are tackling a very topical issue. According to research, 1 out of 3 women have experienced one form of violence in their lifetime. What are we doing about this? What conversations are we having about this? Over the past 2 editions, we have been focused on first ladies. Why, you might ask? Very simple. This demography of women are so strong, so bold, so powerful, yet undermine most times. So welcome with me our special guest for today, the one and only First Lady of Ekiti State, a gender and development expert, a woman who has devoted her life to fighting for women. Erelu, Bisi, Adeleye-Fayemi.
Your Excellency, you're a gender expert, you're a development expert, you've worked in the space for so long, you've seen lots of trends and patterns, you've championed causes as well. What would you say, based on the focus of our topic today, what would you say are the consequences of sexual and gender-based violence on women and the society at large?
Thank you, Joke. The consequences of sexual and gender-based violence are dire. We have women falling into depression and suffering from a range of mental health issues. We have issues to do with drug abuse, issues to do with the lack of capacity to build a productive and meaningful life. If we've had cases of women and girls being assaulted in school, they drop out and are unable to continue their education. And without a decent education, it means your prospects on the job market or in terms of being able to have a livelihood are severely diminished. And then we also have, in very extreme cases, suicides as well from all these, abuses. So in general, what it means is if we have people who are victims of one form of gender-based violence or the other, or if they have survived any of these, if people are victims of any of these forms of violence, if we do not support them to become survivors, what will happen is we are going to continue to lose valuable resources. Those who are supposed to help build the economy, those who are supposed to be our future doctors and lawyers and engineers, we are going to lose them to a cycle of depression, to a cycle of abuse or drug abuse or even suicide. So we need to invest in a system that ensures that people can move from being victims to survivors, because otherwise we continue to lose women and girls on a daily basis.
Thank you so much, Rick. That's a very interesting perspective. I love the way you sort of marry the point to economic development, that if we keep on, if we do not tackle gender-based violence in the country, or if we do not support victims to become survivors, we'll keep losing that critical human capital in society, which is very crucial to nation building and socioeconomic progression. So thank you so much for that point. Now, to you, Your Excellency, how are you leveraging your role, your networks and wider stakeholders to solve issues around sexual and gender-based violence in the country?
Thank you, Joke. Well, I'm doing that on 2 levels. First of all, within my state, Ekiti State, we have a full range of legal and policy frameworks to ensure gender equality and women's empowerment in Ekiti. At the risk of sounding immodest, we believe that Ekiti State has about the most robust policy frameworks and legal frameworks in the country to enhance the status of women. And to speak specifically about gender-based violence, every law needs to have an implementing and coordinating mechanism. So our GBV law in Ekiti State makes provision for a gender-based violence management committee, and I chair that. Now, this GBV management committee is made up of statutory agencies as well as civil society organizations. And the statutory agencies that are represented on the GBV committee include representation from the Office of the Chief Judge of the state. The Attorney General of the state is on the committee. Then very key MDAs such as Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, local government, information. And then we have other agencies such as NAPTIP and organizations such as the National Human Rights Commission, and a group of very committed civil society organizations. What we have done with our GBV response in Ekiti State is to structure our work along 5 broad areas. So all the members of the GBV committee are actively involved in each of these areas because they're all critical to a robust GBV response. And those areas include, first of all, access to justice, ensuring that survivors of GBV have access to justice so that they can have the justice they deserve, so that perpetrators can be put away, and the blame is placed squarely at the doorstep of the perpetrators and not the victims. The second key area of concern is treatment, care, and protection of survivors. If survivors are not going to be taken care of, if there's nowhere for them to go, for them to receive the treatment they need, the psychosocial support that is necessary on a short, medium to long-term basis, and if we cannot connect evidence very quickly to ensure that convictions can stand up in court if it's a case of rape and sexual assault, then we are not going to have the moral authority to ask GBV victims to continue to come forward. So we have an effective response in place for the treatment, care, and protection of survivors. A third area that we are working in is on education and orientation to ensure effective community buy-in. People need to know that we will not condone a culture of violence and that everyone has a role to play in ensuring that these messages permeate into our grassroots communities. So through this education and orientation, we work with schools, with traditional rulers, with religious leaders, with a whole range of stakeholders in grassroots communities whose opinions matter. And then the fourth area is in the area of information and communication, communicating these messages in languages that people will understand, and using a variety of fora such as conventional media, non-conventional media, popular culture, and so on. And then last but not the least, having an effective strategy in place for monitoring and evaluation so that we can learn what's working and build on that, and then we can get feedback on all the other strategies that we have in place. And so in Ekiti State, with all these strategies that we put in place, we have made a lot of impact. There's still a lot of work to be done, but we are quite happy with what we've been able to do so far. We've built good relationships with a whole range of stakeholders, some of whom I've already mentioned, the traditional rulers, religious leaders, male and female chiefs, and school authorities, and so on. We have a sexual assault referral center, a one-stop shop where we can take care of GBV survivors. We have a shelter to take care of women and their children. We've had one for the past 8 years or so, but recently we have just completed, with the help of the Sustainable Development Goals Office in Abuja, we've just completed a new transit home for women and girls where we can take care of up to 200 women and their children should the need arise. And we also have a sex offenders register as part of our GBV response, as well as a name and shame policy. So not only will we register sex offenders into the conventional register as required by the VAP Act, we will also name and shame you in your community and in the nation at large. And to drive all these things I've been talking about, there is strong political will. Our governor, His Excellency Dr. Adeleye-Fayemi, is known for his deep commitment to gender equality issues and to GBV in particular. And we have a fantastic Attorney General, Honorable Wale Fakponja, who has been key in driving all these policy and legal frameworks. It's critical to have this political will, because without it, all this cannot be made, all this can't be possible.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. And I mean, I'm so impressed and inspired by all that you've listed. I love the fact that the state is taking an end-to-end approach, not just working on solutions in isolation, but ensuring that, first of all, you're creating the legal framework to prevent and also ensure justice system is strengthened. You're engaging the critical stakeholders. You're also engaging victims to see how you can support them and just help transit them to survivors. You're working with or you're leveraging information and communication technology to spread the word, and also you are building the right monitoring and evaluation and impact assessment tools. I love what you said about the name and shame policy, because yes, the sex offenders register is great, but I think those people actually they're beasts in the society, and as such they should be treated as such. So thank you very much. One thing that just occurred to me is you have this very strong framework in the community, and you've done this work. I mean, you've championed a lot of legislative engagement, and we've seen some success, especially with the VAP Act. How are you engaging other first ladies, other states, to ensure that they can tap into the knowledge, the will, and also the learnings and successes from Ekiti State?
Sometime in June this year, I got together with other governors' wives, and we decided to establish a working group known as Nigerian Governors' Wives Against Gender-Based Violence. We decided to do this because every single one of us in our respective states are looked upon as mothers of the state, and we all play a key role in social welfare issues. On a daily basis, we have to attend to one case or the other that is to do with one form of sexual and gender-based violence or the other, cases of rape, abandonment, child abuse, a whole lot of issues. And so we felt that as individual first ladies, we might be doing great work in our states, but collectively, we can be a force to be reckoned with. So we decided to come together to leverage our platforms and our voice to add, to throw our own weight behind what it is other women's rights organizations and civil society organizations in Nigeria were doing around gender-based violence. And so that's how our group was created in June of this year. And the first thing we did was to send a memo to our husbands at the Nigerian Governors Forum to draw their attention to our concerns and to add our voices to the demand for a state of emergency on gender-based violence. If our political leaders can declare a state of emergency on issues such as health, education, and security, there's no reason why we can't have a state of emergency on gender-based violence. Considering the fact that whilst we are dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, a sexual and gender-based violence pandemic reared its head because the lockdowns forced women and girls into close proximity with their predators and abusers in their communities, hence leading to a second pandemic. And a good friend of mine who's a mental health expert also said there's a third pandemic going on as well, which is the mental health one. And from my experience, all these three feed into one another: the COVID-19 lockdowns, a sexual and gender violence pandemic, and the mental health pandemic. And so we demanded that a state of emergency be declared. Our husbands listened to us, and so on the 10th of June, they declared a state of emergency on gender-based violence. And what the governors committed to do with that state of emergency was going back to their states to convince their state House of Assembly to domesticate the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, if they've not already done so, as well as the Child Rights Act as well. And right now, only 17 states out of 36 states have domesticated the VAP Act. And we still have a number of states who have not domesticated the Child Rights Act either. So the governors made a commitment to going back to ensuring that that was done. And now for the states who already have this legislation, the governors agreed that there should be renewed political will to ensuring the implementation of these laws and policies. As I said earlier, you can have these laws and policies in place, you can have them on paper, you can have as many committees as you like. But if there's no political will to drive all these laws and policies, nothing is going to happen. And so I'm pleased to note that since that state of emergency was declared, at least 6 additional states have passed the VAP Act in Nigeria. And before the end of the year, I know that at least another 3 will follow. As governors wise, in addition to our advocacy to ensure that we have these legislations in place, we have developed an action plan that we are adapting to suit our needs in our different states based on our context. And we continue to engage in sensitization, awareness raising, and community engagement with various stakeholders in our states. I'm happy that we've done quite a lot of work and we've encouraged one another, and I'm aware that there's a lot of work to be done. But the fact that we've come together to create this platform to let people know that we want to stand in solidarity with one another and with women of Nigeria is a great achievement, and it's unprecedented.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. That was very profound. And there's something that you said that made me smile. You said we sent a memo to our husbands. I think for me that is very powerful, because when people start looking, I mean, a lot of people are, just sort of condescending the role of the First Lady just being ceremonial. But the truth is that when women come together, chocolates or powerful women come together, so many things can happen. And one of them is just a clear example that you've given with the Violence Against Persons Act, where you've actually had precise and concise actions that are being implemented, which is 6 states domesticating the Violence Against Persons Act since June. And I think that is very powerful. And that's also one of the common things that we as, partners and the media need to keep talking about for people to understand why it is important to engage the office of the First Lady just beyond that stereotype ceremonial perception. So thank you for that. I mean, it's interesting because now you've sort of answered the next 2 questions I had for you. But let's talk about the Child's Right Act. I mean, I didn't even know that 17 states had done that. Our records still show that 11. So I think it's very interesting to know that most states, are beginning to domesticate this act. However, I think it's very disappointing to know that this law have been failed to. A lot of states have failed to domesticate this law on the basis of religious or cultural grounds or whatever grounds is it, because it's the lives of children. As mothers, as concerned citizens and partners to the First Lady, the first citizens of each state, what other form of pressure do you think you can apply, or how can you further engage the Nigerian Governors Forum to ensure that all states can domesticate this?
Okay, thank you, Joke. A point of correction. I said 17 states out of 36 have domesticated the VAP Act.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay.
Yes, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act of 2015.
Yes.
Right. Now, we still have quite a number of states who have not domesticated the Child Rights Act. Almost all the states, I think all the states in southern Nigeria have domesticated the Child Rights Act. Some states in northern Nigeria have done so as well, but we still have a handful of states, probably at least 10 of them, who have not domesticated the Child Rights Act. And that is mostly to do with religious concerns around how this interferes with religious norms and what religious texts say. The governors, no matter how well-intentioned they are, might be limited in terms of what they're able to do to get these legislations passed. And so that's why everyone, both the governors and the First Ladies, have to work together to lobby the respective state houses of assembly, who in turn will not be able to take action if there's no buy-in from the religious and traditional rulers. And so all that work is ongoing. All the governors and all the First Ladies who are part of our group are actively engaged with very effective advocacy with all these bodies to ensure that when the time comes to ask for these legislations to be passed, the roadblocks that have been placed in the way of these issues up to now will be overcome. It can be frustrating, I know, but I also know that there's renewed commitment and political will from different quarters to ensure that these legislations are passed to protect women and girls.
Thank you so much. Just a side question, Your Excellency. Just when you were speaking, I just thought about, how difficult it can be and the role of communications in advocacy. Now, we know that most of the states that are yet, don't let me say have failed, because we hopeful that they will, that are yet to domesticate this policy. Most of them are northern states. And, as I said earlier, it's on the basis of religious and cultural factors. Now, from your personal opinion, how do you think citizens, the government can present this issue, this critical issue, to these critical stakeholders to ensure that we get the buy-in to understand the fundamental reason why every state should domesticate the Child's Rights Act?
Thank you. I thought I'd already answered that question, Joke. I told you that the basic messaging is clear. If we do not have these legislations in place, we cannot protect the rights of women and girls. If we do not invest in women and girls, we will not achieve any of our development goals. There is no law or religion anywhere that should say that girls should not be educated, that girls should not go to school. And there's no law or religion anywhere that should condone violations of the rights of women and girls. So the messaging is very clear across board. But issues around sexual and gender-based violence are just symptoms of something a lot deeper. We live in, fundamentally patriarchal societies, deeply patriarchal societies, which are characterized by, by male domination over political systems, economic systems, religious systems, and social systems. And mindsets and behaviors within this context solidify over time, and it takes a lot to dislodge people from their beliefs and attitudes. And so we have to apply different approaches to ensure that people feel comfortable with the change you're advocating for. So it's not enough to say, the governors have taken a position, or the first ladies have taken a position, or you have House of Assembly members who are proactive. We also need to encourage our traditional rulers to think differently. And among no group of traditional rulers or religious leaders are homogeneous. Amongst them, we have champions. So it is those champions we first identify, and they are the ones who then talk to others who need more convincing, or who can advise us as to how to frame these messages so that they have more acceptability in communities where these religious and cultural changes are going to mean a lot to them. So it's an ongoing process, which, by and large, I think it's something that we are winning. It takes time, it can be frustrating, but the fact that we are not where we were 20 years ago, and I should know, because this is the 25th anniversary of the Beijing conference. I was at the Beijing conference. I know the kinds of dreams and aspirations I had as a young activist in Beijing, and the kind of country I wanted to see, and the debates that were not even possible at the time. So the fact that we have got ourselves to a point where our political, religious, and traditional rulers are willing to listen to the need for change, to the need for women and girls to have a better deal in terms of what our laws and policies say, and in terms of the role that we have to play in nation building, is a huge step forward. Yes, sometimes it seems as if we take 5 steps forward and 10 steps back. That is, I find that very annoying and frustrating, but I also understand, because I've occupied different platforms and because I know the amount of work that has gone into these issues by civil society leaders, women's rights organizations, and some progressive political leaders, I know that we are going to, at the end of the day, we are going to have every state in Nigeria pass the Child Rights Act and domesticate the VAP Act as well.
Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you so much. That was very important. That was very practical. I love what you said about using champions, which is also, I think, something that a lot of us can take on, because when you're dealing with a patriarchal system, or a system that has entrenched cultural and religious stereotypes, then using the people that understand the system and understand how to communicate with the community is very important. And indeed, it is 25 years after the Beijing conference. It's been a long time coming. coming, but we're very hopeful that we'll see more changes with more strong leaders like you. This takes me to my next question, Your Excellency. Sexual and gender-based violence against female candidates was a prevalent issue during the last general election, with extreme cases such as the murder of a PDP woman leader in Kogi State, yet no one has been brought to justice. Ahead of 2023, what can all stakeholders, political parties, INEC, security operative, and most importantly, the government do differently? How can we protect women?
Well, I believe one of the things that there needs to be consensus on before we hone in on the the impact that this has on women, we all need to have consensus that we have to develop democratic systems and processes that are inclusive and that work for all of us. One of the reasons why women find themselves excluded from political participation or being involved in partisan politics is electoral violence. So if you continue with these systems that we have, which consider electoral violence as a norm, as one of the things that you have to contend with if you have to be a politician, male or female, then that is not something that is going to do us any good in the long run. It means that you are going to be excluding a lot of decent people, both male and female, from taking part in the democratic process. So we need to have a consensus that we will not allow this. Our democratic processes have to be fair, transparent, inclusive, and there should be zero tolerance for any form of electoral violence. Now, talking about violence against female candidates in particular, I think the electoral management body, INEC, needs to take a firmer stance around these issues and have conversations with political parties. Political parties all need to have a policy on inclusion and a strategy for how they will handle electoral violence. As I said, it shouldn't be a norm that every political leader has to go around with electoral thugs, or if things don't go their way, everything gets disrupted through political violence, and then you target women in particular because you consider them to be vulnerable, or you believe that women have no business contesting for political office. So the electoral management body has to take responsibility for that and ensure that these policies are binding on the political parties. And I would also like to see a situation whereby security services who provide the security architecture around politicians and support for political processes provide additional security for female candidates, because from what the statistics tell us, they are more vulnerable and they are they're more of a target in their different communities, because people feel all you have to do is scare a female politician and then she will get scared, stay away, and it's business as usual for her male contestants. So that should not be the case. You should not accept the silencing of women in these ways. Women are the ones who hold up the political machineries of all the political parties. Women are the ones who do the campaigning. They are the ones who do the mobilizing. They are the ones who do the cooking and the dancing and rallying party members, doing the party uniforms, the ashebi and so on. But when it comes to political engagement, ensuring that they are part of the political process by being able to contest elections, to get tickets for winnable seats, then they are pushed to the margins. So we need to have policies in place to ensure that this does not continue to happen, because I believe it is criminal to continue to silence women in these structural ways.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. What you just said now really is just music to my ears. And I think for me, it's really profound. And one of the reasons is because it's just so obvious that you're first a gender and development expert. You are a feminist to the core, before looking at, your political affiliation. So I think that's very commendable, because one of the trends we've seen in trying to engage some of the first ladies is the fact that they failed to take a stance on a couple of things, which we respect. However, today what you've done is you're speaking in a very objective tone. You've actually denounced that it is wrong to to abuse women, and you've actually just advocated for better policies. We're hoping that the ongoing electoral reform and the constitutional reform processes would definitely, factor in all the suggestions that you've made. And, as an organization, and, we hope that we can keep pushing for this. Now, to a more exciting conversation. This is definitely that's definitely very deep and exciting as well. In 2001, yourself and two other amazing pace setters set up the African Women Development Fund, the first Pan-African fund to support women's rights organization. And from inception to date, the African Women's Development Fund has granted a total of $49.9 million to various organizations. Your Excellency, briefly talk us through the impact of your organization over time, specifically how it has supported organizations working on gender-based violence issues.
Thank you, Joke. Well, going by what we did at our last board meeting, which took place last week in Accra, our grant making is well over $49 million now.
Oh, wow.
2020 is the 20th anniversary of the African Women's Development Fund.
Oh,
I co-founded AWDF with two other African women, with Joanna Foster, who sadly passed away a few years ago. She was from Ghana, and Dr. Hilda Chadria, who is from Uganda. We set up the African Women's Development Fund because we wanted, the three of us had been a part of organizing within the African women's movement for many years. And we were very familiar with conversations around access to donor funding and the kinds of issues this funding was available to cover. We knew that there were lots of African women's organizations who were doing really great things in their communities, but did not have access to resources. And so that's why we set up the African Women's Development Fund, AWDF in short, to provide resources to these women's rights organizations. We work in a number of thematic areas, but to speak to the area you've just mentioned, gender-based violence, which is within our women's human rights programmatic area, we supported a number of women's initiatives across the continent. First of all, those who work on providing frontline services to GBV survivors. So we have organizations such as the Rape Crisis Center in Cape Town, South Africa, and the Women's Hospital in Nairobi, Kenya. And here in Nigeria, organizations such as Project Alert, who have been doing fantastic work over the years on frontline GBV services. We've also funded a lot of advocacy work on GBV issues across the continent. So we have organizations such as FemNet, the Pan-African Regional Women and Communications Network, Akinamama Wa Africa, where I used to work years ago and where I established the African Women's Leadership Institute. They continue to do great work around leadership development and building the capacity of young African women leaders. And then here in Nigeria, organizations such as WOTC, Alliances for Africa. There's a whole range of the Nigerian Women's Trust Fund, who you should be familiar with. These organizations AWDF has supported over the years in these areas. And then because we consider economic empowerment to be key in addressing GBV issues, we've also supported many women's rights organizations on economic empowerment issues. And we have here in Nigeria, for example, the again, Nigerian Women's Trust Fund has done a lot of advocacy work around not just political participation, but economic empowerment for women as well. And then in South Africa, the Masimanyana Women's Crisis Center, who I visited once, and I was fascinated to see that the grants we gave them had gone into setting up a bakery to provide skills to survivors of GBV. And then other organizations in different parts of Africa, like in Mali and Kenya, who were doing projects on female genital mutilation and had identified the need to provide an alternative means of livelihood to circumcisers as a key intervention point. And that is the strategy I've now brought to Ekiti State, as we ourselves are trying to tackle the issue of FGM in Ekiti State, this issue of an alternative means of livelihood. So in summary, AWDF has provided a lot of support to at least 2,000 women's organizations in 42 African countries and a handful of women's organizations in the Middle East as well, to address a whole range of interventions around gender-based violence.
Wow, thank you so much. That is truly inspiring. And I love what you said about replicating some of the lessons learned and the successes that you've actually achieved, through the course of the 20 years in your state right now. So yeah, happy anniversary, and here's the next 10 years and 10 years and 10 years and 20 years to come. Your Excellency, there's a common perception about the role of First Ladies being largely ceremonial, as I said earlier. Why has this perception been persistent over time? And what would you like people to know about what it means to be a First Lady and the strategic importance of the role to nation building?
Thank you for that, Joke. Well, as I often say, there's usually quite a bit of ambivalence when it comes to issues to do with First Ladies or spouses of political leaders. And it's not something that is unique to us here in Nigeria. A lot of times you hear people say, why do we need First Ladies? Their roles are not constitutional, and so they're a drain on public resources. From what I have found out, it's actually an irrelevant issue as to whether their roles are constitutional or not. First Ladies are part and parcel of any democratic process. And that's something even so-called advanced democracies have learned over the years. So in a place like the United States, for example, if you have anyone aspiring for political office, the president of the country, a governor of a state, a mayor, and so on, they are taking you in totality, you and what comes with you. No one wants to vote for a saint who is going to go home to the arms of a dragon at night. People want to know the full package they are dealing with. And First Ladies have certain roles that are expected of them, but it is up to each First Lady, regardless of whether she is First Lady of a country or First Lady of a state. Each First Lady would identify what works for her or what she's comfortable with. There are three main roles that a First Lady is expected to play. There are ceremonial roles. So there are certain things we have to do to support our husbands, to appear with them on, for state functions, or to assume certain state responsibilities, like, taking control of, managing government house and protocol issues and children's issues and so on. So we have those ceremonial responsibilities. And then we also have the philanthropic activities that we are all expected to engage in. Many of us are expected to set up our own foundations, or at least identify with a cause that can add value to the constituencies who voted us into office. And those interests usually cover social welfare issues, economic empowerment issues, and things that would generally make life more meaningful for our citizens, particularly women and children. And the third role that is expected of us is advocacy on issues of concern, to lend our voices or to lend our support to things that our communities want to see change around. So those could be in the areas of education, health, and a whole range of opportunities for our citizens. Now, there are some First Ladies who feel more comfortable with one of these roles more than others, and there are some who feel comfortable with the combination of all these three roles. My sense and my experience from what I do and what I've seen my colleagues do is people just decide how much innovation they want to engage in, how much they want to use the platform they have, and how much they feel comfortable doing. And I believe that what we would expect is people should give us the benefit of doubt and just allow us to do whatever it is we feel we need to do in support of our people. But I also say to myself and to my colleagues that to whom much is given, much is expected. And so However we decide to play our roles, we should do so with the utmost sensitivity, with integrity, with tact, and also with an understanding that we are only in these positions for a limited period of time. So we should use these platforms as responsibly as possible to do as much good as we can, knowing fully well that when we leave, another person is going to move into those positions as well. And I also joke that sometimes people treat us like a black market. Everybody has an opinion as to whether there should be a first lady or not. But then on the side, people come to us for us to solve problems, to do this and do that. So first ladies are here to stay. We just need to find a way of ensuring that we have democratic spaces that recognize this, and that we ourselves who occupy these roles, that we are found worthy of the positions that we occupy.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. I like, the fact that you keep having the conversations with your colleagues, that to whom much is given, much is expected. There's something that I also like that you said again, which is no one wants to know a saint who gets into the arms of a dragon at night. I think that's very interesting, and definitely one thing I would take away. One of the things you also said is, this position is for a short period of time, so it is indeed important to fulfill the role, the office, with much integrity. Thank you so much for that. Now, before the final two questions, I'm going to open the conversation, because that will be the final two concluding questions, just to question and answers. So for everyone out there listening, for our question and answer session, I'm going to ask you to raise your hands if you have questions, and then I'm going to unmute you. However, we have rules and principles that guide how we engage on this part. We implore you to stick strictly to the issues that we're addressing. If you go off the conversation, I will have to mute you for the sake of civil discussion. So let's keep it to the conversation we're having, which is tackling sexual and gender-based violence through women's political participation. So what have you heard today? What clarifications do you need? What other comments do you have? What would you like to further discuss? What would you like to know about the role of the First Lady, what they're doing, and also how they can amplify women's political participation in Nigeria? Before I meet people, I know we have about 3 questions in the Q&A box. The first one, Your Excellency, is: women hold the key to fixing most of what is wrong with our country. Now, more than ever, we need a reframing of our democratic spaces and solutions to our leadership crisis. This requires new faces and voices, especially Nigerian women in the different capacities who can drive this forward. Based on your experience and work in the civil and political space, how best and practicable can women secure political will to participate in public life? Any prospect, how soon can we realize that?
Well, I think, first of all, because of my passion for policy advocacy, I would like to start from legal and the critical importance of legal and policy frameworks. And I'll tell you where I'm coming from on this. Here in Ekiti State, through 2 political cycles, the 2011 political cycle and the 2019 political cycle, I managed to lobby to get party tickets for some of the women from my political party, for them to contest elections, and they all won. Now the process, the first time I did it in 2011, we did not have any legal frameworks in place in the state. So all I had to do was beg the party leaders, beg community leaders, please, women are marginalized, women need to be included, we have to carry our women along, doing all the song and dance. But by the time I was going through the same process in 2019, I had something to stand on. After the courtesies of party greeting the party chairman and greeting the elders, then I would remind them, now in Ekiti State we have a gender and equal opportunities law that makes provision for at least 35% of women in leadership positions. If you are not able to give us 35%, tell us what you can do for us. So then I knew I was not speaking from ground zero. I was not, going to go away empty-handed. These legal and policy frameworks are key because Nigerian women have been, left to beg and appeal and to plead for inclusion at all levels. That should not be the case. Political inclusion is supposed to be a right for all of us, the same way in which men in our society believe that they have a right to aspire for political office, so should women. So what I'm saying here is that we need laws and policies to ensure that we have women in political spaces. And we also need to have a mechanism whereby we can level the playing field. And that is why some of us have been asking for affirmative action and quotas. The reason why other countries such as South Africa, Rwanda, Kenya, and Uganda have significantly high numbers of women in political office is because of these laws and policies around affirmative action and quotas. In Nigeria, we have less than 5% of women in the National Assembly. So we need something like the Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill to be passed by the National Assembly that can ensure that Nigerian women stop begging for inclusion. So that's where I would start, the legal and policy frameworks. Second, I would look at education opportunities for women and girls. And the fact that right now we still have so many girls who are out of school, or even when they can get into school, because of sexual exploitation, which they face right from the time they step out of the door, from the Okada rider who takes them to school, from the gatesmen in their schools, from their classmates who happen to be boys, and even their teachers. As a result, we have such a high rate of attrition that girls get pregnant and they fall out and they drop out of school. And if you're a girl from a poor family and you get pregnant, that's the end of your life as you know it, which means all your dreams of becoming a lawyer, doctor, engineer, and so on, that's where they die. So where are you going to find your next crop of female leaders from? Your next governor, your next senator, and so on. So education of women and girls is extremely important. Then women's economic empowerment. There's women's empowerment generally, which includes women's economic empowerment, women's access to decent healthcare, women's access to political participation. All this is still unfinished business because, as I said earlier when we started this conversation, if women are not empowered, you can't get much done. And then I would also like to add and speak to the issue of a new culture for our society, a new culture in which we can bring up boys for them to grow up to be men who are progressive and understand the value of women, and a new culture that brings girls up with self-esteem and confidence so that they know they can go out there and conquer the world and there's no limitation placed on them because of their gender.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. So I'm going to open the lines now. Just raise your hands if you want to speak or ask a question. Remember our guiding principles. I know we have 2 to 3 more questions in the question and answer box. I will read them out, but I want people to engage with Her Excellency, of course, sticking to the theme of our discussion. Madam Adeyemo Mojupe, I know you've typed a question, actually, or an issue that you've raised, and we will communicate that to the First Lady's team. However, would like to stick to, the direct conversation we're having today. So that's a promise. We'll communicate the issue you've raised to our team directly, if that's okay. Okay.
Do you know what her question is?
Yes, I've just seen it. She said, Your Excellency, I will need your assistance in the raping of my daughter, which is in the custody of civil defense at the moment. However, we don't have any more context to that.
Okay, is she from Ekiti State?
She didn't mention that, but Madam Adeyemo, if you're from Ekiti State, please type in the question and answer box that if you're from Ekiti, let us know so that Her Excellency can address this, please. Okay, while we're waiting for while we're waiting for her to respond, Ma, I'm going to unmute. Yes. Any please, you can speak. I've unmuted you.
Okay, thank you very much, moderator. Thank you, Your Excellency. I'm very passionate about political. I'm very passionate about the use of power, which unfortunately a lot of women are not so passionate about, or they don't have a right attitude to the use of power, which is everything that affects our private life, our public lives, and the rest. So I'm very curious. I've asked this question severally. Section 23 of the VAB Act. Let me read it. It says, a person who commits a political violence as defined under this act relating to political violence commits an offense and is liable on conviction to a term of imprisonment not exceeding 4 years, or to a fine not exceeding 500,000, or both. So we've not seen anybody convicted under this act. So what can your team, the team you are leading, the first ladies, do in terms of prosecuting those who target women politicians, particularly because they are women, not just because they are politicians? All politicians suffer violence, but there are particular violence that is targeted at women, especially demand for sex, as well as certain kinds of assault on them. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you much. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Sister Ene. I don't know if you were listening earlier when I said our electoral management body, INEC, as well as our security services, need to take these issues of violations of women during electoral processes very seriously. If women are afraid to come out to be part of electoral processes as candidates or supporters of candidates, then we are doing our electoral or democratic systems a lot of injustice. And I am a firm believer in scapegoats. It is very hard to drive a point home if you don't have scapegoats. And so I'm hoping that between now and the next electoral cycle, as the next national electoral cycle, I do for the ones that are going to come up, because we know we are going to have a number of state elections over the next 2 years or so. I hope that there'll be a lot of sensitization and awareness on the need for electoral violence to be totally eradicated or at least minimized, and that we will not condone the targeting of female candidates just because they simply happen to be women. And one of the ways in which women are targeted these days is through online trolling, cyber violence. That's become a huge issue, and it's a very serious thing. It constitutes emotional and psychological abuse, and we should not be condoning it. Unfortunately, a lot of people who are supposed to know better are actively involved in this. So we need to, as I said earlier, have consensus that as a country, electoral violence, particularly if it is targeted at women, should have no place in our electoral systems. And we should, if we find scapegoats, they need to be dealt with to set an example and to serve as a deterrent for others.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. So Madam Modupe Adeyemo has come back, and she says she's from Ekiti, that the case is in Ekiti State.
Well, if the case is in Ekiti State, can she please get in touch with the Gender and Vulnerable Persons Unit in my office. My office is, everybody knows where the office of the First Lady is. It's at the Fumi Olayinka Center at Fajri. She should come there and report to the Gender and Vulnerable Persons Unit. I'm sure the case is being handled at the moment, but if not, something will be done.
Okay, thank you very much.
She should please come there as soon as possible. She should come tomorrow, and there'll be someone to listen to her and make sure that justice is done for her daughter.
Okay, thank you very much. So Madam Adeyemo, please ensure you follow the instructions. This is from Mojupe Adu. She says, Your Excellency, women in the custody of male police and military officers get sexually assaulted. The officers do not follow their rules of engagement. What can be done to address this?
Thank you. This is so disheartening, the abuse of women by security agencies and officials. It takes me back to the point I made earlier about the state of emergency that the governors declared. Now, my sense of this state of emergency is that it's not just the state governors who should be declaring a state of emergency on sexual and gender-based violence. All public institutions, the National Assembly, the Inspector General of Police, the even corporate institutions, the tertiary institutions, all public institutions and leaders need to declare a state of emergency, and each of them need to translate this into how it affects the institutions that they lead. There have been too many abuses of women by security services, both the police and the army. And with all due respect, this needs to be addressed because it is these agencies we look to for protection. It is these agencies we look to ensure that justice is done. And if these are the very agencies that are responsible for our violations, then it means we don't have any hope. And that is why having an effective coordinating mechanism around gender-based violence at a national level and at state level is extremely important. At state level, for example, the police is represented on a gender-based violence management committee, and they do a great job. They've been doing a great job because they know that we will have something to say if the case is otherwise. And we have other security agencies on the committee as well, like representatives of civil defense and NATIV. A lot of times in communities, the first the first security agency that people go to report to might be civil defense, or it could be the nearby, the nearest police station. And if the police have not received instructions from their bosses, because these security institutions rely, wholly on their chain of command. If they've not received instructions as to how to handle these issues and ensure that they are dealt with transparency and expeditiously, then it means that our cases, keep disappearing, and that's what happens unless we step in and put measures in place to ensure that these cases continue to be addressed throughout the value chain in these security services. So we would like to appeal to all the security chiefs to apply this state of emergency to their institutions to ensure that all Nigerian women and children and the handful of men who might be affected are protected, because gender-based violence is no respecter of anyone's rank, position, or social standing. It could happen to anyone.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Okay. Now to the final question, Your Excellency. I actually had two questions, but you've done justice to the second to the last one, which is just talking about actionable steps needed to change the violent culture in Nigeria. You've talked about, having a comprehensive legal framework. You've talked about engaging different sets of stakeholders, both at the national level, at the communal level, and seeing what forms of communication works. You've talked about using champions to actually engage community leaders and so on. And you also, just cited examples of the kind of framework or institutions you've built in the state to really tackle those issues. Now to the final question, Your Excellency. The African Women's Development Fund continues to do great work, with one of its thematic areas being leadership, participation, and peace. You've also sat or sit as the chair of the Advisory Council of the Nigerian Women's Trust Fund, which clearly indicates your acknowledgement of the fact that women need access to resources and should be involved in all areas of policy formulation and decision-making, which you've well alluded to today. Ahead of 2023, at this very critical time in our democracy, how would you harness your role as First Lady and a development expert to encourage and enable more women to run for elective office? And how do you see partisan politics affecting this?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, to start from the Nigerian Women's Trust Fund that you mentioned, I served as chair of the Advisory Council of the Nigerian Women's Trust Fund for 8 years. I stepped down as chair recently because I believe that if you've been in a position for a certain period of time, you need to give space to other people. That's a key principle of good governance and democracy. But I'm still actively engaged in the work of the Trust Fund. And one of the reason why the Trust Fund was created in the first instance was to ensure that resources are made available to women who want to be part of political processes, whether they are financial resources, technical resources, material resources, or any form of capacity building to make them competitive and to ensure that there's a level playing field created. I am deeply committed to ensuring that we have as many women as possible in our political space. And I want to see every Nigerian woman who has something to say about the exclusion of women. Everyone knows what the statistics are. I mentioned them earlier, less than 5%. Are we happy with these figures? Do we think we can do better? Do we have women who we know can fill positions, run for office, or be appointed into office across board at all levels? If the answer is yes, why are we not prepared to put our money where our mouth is? And so Nigerian women should rise up and make resources available to the Nigerian Women's Trust Fund or to other entities who are interested in providing capacity building support systems for women to be able to run for political office. If we all pull together as women, we will have enough resources to ensure that women can run for whatever political offices they aspire to, because we all know that resources play a key role in limiting women's abilities to run for office. It plays a big role for men as well. But men seem to have places where they can go to for support. They seem to have godfathers they can go to. And I think I know enough of how the system works not to delude myself that that's a practice that is going to end anytime soon. So I'm not going to start debating whether we can do without or do with godfathers in Nigeria. From my experience and from the realities I know exist in our communities, where are the godmothers? Women, we are capable. The woman the woman who sells things in our marketplace, who might not have much of an education, but is a solid opinion leader in her community, is a godmother. Let us go and seek them out. Let us go and look for a way of building political and social capital so that more women can be considered for public office in the main parties, not in fringe parties. Because if you go and get a gubernatorial ticket or a presidential ticket from a fringe party, it can give you some exposure and it can put you out there as a role model to others, but I think that's not good enough. We have enough women in all the relevant political parties to ensure that we can aspire to get tickets to run for winnable seats. Then, apart from the issue of providing resources, women standing for women, women serving as champions for other women, apart from that issue, we also need to see what we can do to engage with the mainstream political parties. All the mainstream political parties have a structure through which women are supposed to engage, and that is the women wings of the parties. These women wings, we need to build the capacity of these women's wings so that they can truly fight for women. They can truly fight for space for women and a voice for women, as opposed to fighting for positions for themselves. If you look at the ANC Women's League, for example, in South Africa, the South African government or ANC as a party cannot get anything done without the input of the ANC Women's League. Why can't we learn from that instead of having women's wings who are only there to dance for the politicians, to cook for them, to wear their shebi, and then when the time comes to consider women for positions, the women who are the leaders in those women wings are the ones positioning themselves for those positions and excluding the vast majority of women who were the ones who encouraged the party to victory in the first place. I would like to see a better, more accountable and more robust engagement of the women's wings of political parties. And then I would like to see new faces and new voices. We need to have more young women in politics. We need to encourage women to, and they don't have to be young women at that. We need to encourage women who have not been involved in politics before to run for office. We should leave vocations or careers in the big cities, hopefully when we've retired, and go back home and run for office. Because if you sit in our big cities and look and turn on the TV and you're complaining about who is representing you in Abuja, in the National Assembly, where are you? Where have you been? Where is your voice? So let us go home and take an active role in what is happening in our communities. And again, you might not want to run for office at the first instance, but be involved, be engaged, support people with your resources or with whatever you have. And in Ekiti State, for example, I have been supporting young women to go into politics. There's a very active network of young women in politics in Ekiti State. There are at least 4,000 to 5,000 of them across all the 16 local governments. And these young women, currently, some of them hold office in the state at local government level or at state level. Some of them will be supported with their businesses or to go back to school or to learn a trade. And we know that come the next election cycle, we are going to have a significant number of these young women again represented in decision making across the state.
Wow, that was very robust, Your Excellency. Very robust, very practical, very thought-provoking as well. I love that, these are points that really speak to the heart and really tackle the issue. You've talked enough about, resource allocation, resource mobilization, being able to harness and leverage social, human, and financial capital, which is a huge gap really affecting women today. And you also talked about the fact that we need to be realistic about the current political climate, which is, look, men are sourcing for funds. There's the godfatherism. Rather than complaining right now, let us find a way to support women, women supporting women, women mobilizing resources for women, women supporting organizations, supporting women. I love what you said about what you are doing in Ekiti State with the active network of young women politicians in Ekiti State. And I really hope it's something that other states can replicate as well, because this is very important. It's very crucial that we have women playing at that communal level, because they then will rise up to then represent us, at a state level or the national level. I also love the very practical step you mentioned about engaging mainstream political parties, especially the women's wing, and how you reference South Africa's ANC's Women's League and how very crucial they are to decision making at the party level. And I think, that brings me to a point about the current discussion around the quota system. Some of the other African countries that, have had success in either legislating or pushing for quota system, which could be either voluntary or legal candidate quotas or reserved seat quotas. A lot of them have been done through the women's wing in the political parties. So absolutely, this is something that we definitely need to take seriously. Beyond ladies, tying a shoebi or supporting the male candidates as allies, rather than them themselves, being the candidate. So thank you very much for an insightful conversation. Just to talk a little bit about what we're doing as ElectHER, I want to thank you and appreciate yourself and all the amazing women that have been fighting for the struggle. We're very new in the space, and what we're trying to do is to complement the effort of all the amazing women and the men that are playing in the space as well. So ElectHER as an organization, like we said, we are looking to disrupt the space through technology, engaging citizens actively. We drive a lot of thought leadership through our social media platform, just ensuring that citizens understand the stake, what is at stake when they do not have equal representation or greater representation in politics. Later this month, we are launching ElectHER Academy. So just to mention, we have a 4E model, which is engage, encourage, equip, and enable. And essentially, this is part of our engagement policies where we're engaging different stakeholders, where we're encouraging women themselves to understand why they need to run for office and why it is very crucial to nation building. Our encourage part, we just recently launched a digital platform called The Site to Run, where we're trying to get women that would necessarily not think about running for office under a community, a digital community, to engage with themselves, to learn and to interact and to get mentorship so that they can run for office in future elective cycles. We're launching ElectHER Academy later this month or next month. And essentially, we have 3 programs under it. So we have the online learning management software, which means anyone across Africa can get access to resources to equip themselves about the political systems in the country or running for office. We have our facilitated trainings, which we involve experts, dishing out knowledge about what it takes to run for office and how to prepare yourself in a very practical way for the political climate. And one of our flagship projects, which we'll be launching, we're hoping to launch our applications at the end of the year, is called ElectHER Future Lawmakers Program. And everything you've talked about today, Your Excellency, really, brings up a good case for that. We need women at the helms of affairs when it comes to policy formulation and decision making. As I said, we have just about 4.1% of women's representation at the National Assembly, which is the lowest and which is extremely disappointing. And that is why we're seeing the implication on the aspects of our policy today. So ElectHER Future Lawmakers Program is meant to raise a new generation of female lawmakers in Nigeria. And, we're hoping that, more and more people can partner with us to really bring this to bear. Going forward into elections, we'll be working on digital platforms, setting up an integrated mobile application that will help women manage the life cycle of their campaign and elections, profile them, an accountability platform that would also just monitor and track the performance of ladies and provide open data to all stakeholders that require them. So thank you very much. You can engage on our social media platforms at electher_ng or through our website, www.elect-her.org. We're very inspired today by this conversation. We say a very big thank you to you, Your Excellency. It's been such an insightful conversation. Thank you for all you do. Congratulations again to the African Women's Development Fund. Congratulations to you to all the strides in Ekiti State. We hope other states can replicate this. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Joke. It's been great talking to you and sharing all these strategies around women's political power and ending sexual and gender-based violence. Without women in critical decision-making positions, all the things I've been talking about this afternoon, gets almost impossible to be done. I really appreciate all the work that you do, and particularly the fact that you're doing it with young women. I wish you all the best, and you can count on me and my colleagues who are members of Nigerian Governors' Wives Against Gender-Based Violence to support you as you go forward. And to all those who have joined in, thank you for your participation.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. There's so much love in the chat session. So thank you very much again for joining us and spending your evening with us. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening and a beautiful week ahead. Thank you.